Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate, with host Glenn Sutherland.
Welcome to another episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. This week our guest is Marc Younger. Marc was a guest back on episode 76 and episodes 77. And Marc, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm originally Canadian, lived in Edmonton and then Montreal for many years. Got sick of the cold and basically moved to, took a vacation down to Orlando for a month 4 years ago. Fell in love with the city, fell in love with spending so much time with my kids outdoors, going to theme parks, going to water parks, having fun, going to the beach. I said, you know what, it'd be awesome if I lived here. So I basically devised a plan to buy a lot of mortgage notes and get an E2 investor visa and move down here. And that's exactly what I did 3 years ago. And I've been living here ever since.
Yes. And if you want to know more about figuring out how to do that E2 visa, check out those episodes 76 and 77, because that's literally what we're talking about, how a Canadian can move to the States permanently. Anyway, Marc, we wanted to, I guess, jump into a little bit about the market down in Florida, the state of the market. Do we want to jump right into the slides, or do you want to talk about anything beforehand?
Sure. Well, essentially, I mean, Florida's a state where, we rely a lot on tourism. The beach areas rely on the beach tourists. The Orlando area, which 60% of the tourists to Florida per year come to Orlando. Yeah. And there's one reason for that. He's got 2 ears and a tail. And so basically Disney brings in 60% of the tourists. There's 126 million tourists to Florida every year, or at least there was in 2018 and 19, and 75 million of them came to Orlando. Now with COVID, we've taken a big hit. International flights are suspended. Brazil, which is a big investor in Florida for the last 5 to 10 years, they're banned because of their COVID the fact that they have a high number of COVID cases. So that's hurting a lot as well. But I think there's huge opportunity here, because as the Brazilians are going to be selling their properties, and as the Chinese, who were affected first by COVID, are going to be selling their properties, I'm already, as a licensed realtor here, I'm looking heavily at the vacation rentals and seeing that there's already like a 10% drop. There's already deals, and it's just going to keep getting better and better for the investors that come in now. And Disney reopening, Universal's already reopening. I'm going this afternoon with my kids. It's just the economy's coming back, but those people that took a hit are going to get out of the market, and it's going to give opportunity for new people that want to buy.
That's incredible. That's always the stuff that gets everyone excited. Everyone's always excited about Florida anyway. It's always a nice place to go visit. And
it is. Every day, like my family was telling me, like, oh, it was 41 degrees and old people were dying of heat stroke in Montreal today. And the next day, my mom's like, oh, my tomatoes were freezing. It was 7 degrees today. And I'm like, what world do you live in? Like, I almost can't remember. It's been, 3.5 years, because I wake up every morning and it's always the same weather. It's 85 degrees. Like 80% of the year I wake up and, oh, is it going to be nice today? Like, you check your weather app every day, right? To see what the weather's like?
Oh, yeah. I get the wife to do it. But yes, we check the weather because it's so different. It varies a lot.
I don't have to do that anymore. I'm like, yeah, it's going to be about 85, maybe 83, maybe 84.
Yeah.
But that's about as much as it's going to change. So there's a lot to be said for having 4 seasons and a beautiful fall and a beautiful winter. But there's something to be said for waking up every day and you know that you can go out with your kids and you can do whatever you want. It's kind of cool.
Oh, no, I'm a little jealous. I love outside. As you can see, if you're watching this on YouTube, my nose peeled yesterday. With my lights, you can't see that I am actually really red. It makes me look tanned. But I am, every second that I can get outside, I've been like just sitting on my deck and getting sunburned over and over again. I think I'm peeling for the 3rd time already, and we're in June. So anyway,
I gotta send you some suntan lotion over there.
yeah, exactly. I need to put something on. I just like, oh, I just want to sit out for a minute.
I do. I follow you on Facebook, and I see that you're when you put pictures of outside, either you or your kids, it's great.
Oh yeah.
So
cool.
But,
so let's jump into your thing.
Great. So I do think there's an opportunity for short-term rentals. I think there's an opportunity for long-term rentals as well. As different people, different international markets have to get out of the market for whatever reason. Like, for example, Brazilians are telling me I can't go back to the US now because of COVID. I'm literally selling because I can't go back into the US. Well, that's a huge opportunity for other people who will be able to. The border with Canada is supposed to reopen in 11 days. Looks like it's going to do that. Trudeau seems to be saying that he's going to soften things. So there should be that opportunity to come down. So, basically...
this probably won't come out this week, so it might be open when this episode releases.
Well, there you go.
Anyway.
So there's a great opportunity, I think, for short and long-term rentals. I mean, I'll show you a comparison with a fiveplex here.
Yeah.
That shows why it's hard to cash flow in Quebec. It's probably hard to cash flow in Ontario because prices are so high. And over here, prices are dirt cheap in comparison. So, So I'll share my screen with you. All right, so this is my short-term rental investor guide. For anybody from Quebec, you'll recognize this guy here. This is called Le Tête à Claque, and it was popular about 5-10 years ago. And this video that accompanies this guy is one of my favorites. He's just a frustrated Quebecer, like, why do I have to live up here in Quebec and always with my windshield every morning? And it was me. It's completely was me, frustrated at shoveling my sidewalk and unfreezing my windshield. So this just explains who I am. I was a financial advisor for 12 years. I had a fourplex in Montreal, a duplex in Montreal. And just because the rules were so strong in terms of the tenants, in Canada, there's a very strong, it's so in favor of the tenants, especially in Quebec, that I just got sick of it. And I was just like, forget this. I'm going to go where, you can evict people like when you need to, when they're rude to you and they're not paying rent, when you can, places where you can get an eviction done.
Mark, to cut you off for 1 second, you are also it's not an all U.S. thing, but for landlord-friendly states, you are in one of the top 5. Whenever people list the top 5, it's always, I think Texas is always number 1, and Florida, Colorado, my memory is terrible, Georgia, and...
They're all in the south.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's one advantage of being here. So whether you do long-term or short-term with me down here, there's benefits to both. But I had to consistently fix, maintain, renovate, and as tenants left, they would destroy the place, and I just got sick of that. So I took my E2 investor visa, came down. So why invest in Florida? Now, I know you invest in Alabama, and that's great.
I'm in four states actually now, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, one of the reasons why Florida is massive migration to Florida right now. People are retiring and coming to Florida. People are sick of the cold and they're coming to Florida. And people are sick of taxes and they're coming to Florida. So the black states here are where people are moving to, and the red states are where they're moving from. So people are moving away from the manufacturing reds, the Rust Belt states. Illinois is having a lot of issues right now, Michigan, and they are moving down here in droves. And if you see, it used to be Texas, right? It used to be Texas that everybody wanted to move to because of the cheap properties and cheap land. Well, that's not the case as much anymore. And, there's literally 0.3% increase in Texas, and there's 2.86 in Florida. We actually just passed New York in terms of population. Oh. So we're massive. Yeah, we're actually the second or third state now behind California. So we're huge. I think New York was number 2. Now we're number 2. So, and it just keeps growing. 330,000 net migration to Florida on a population of 21 million. So, it's huge. So with that comes more demand for rent and more demand for housing. So that's why I think that, and even with the COVID thing, a lot of people that I talk to are saying that Florida's not getting hit as bad with COVID. It's not like 2008. So Florida was the worst state in 2008. It took the biggest hit. But now with COVID, it's actually mostly the northern states. It's actually mostly New York and New Jersey and Connecticut that are getting hit the worst. So, we're actually doing pretty well on that side.
Okay.
Why specifically Orlando? Because 75 million tourists came here in 2018. Obviously, 2019 was also 5% more tourists. And then this year we're going to take a hit. Everybody is, because of COVID. But then 2021, a lot of people could not take their vacation in the first half of 2020. And I live in a resort community here, Champions Gate, and we've got droves of people coming back. New York, New Jersey, people are just getting out of there and coming here on vacation. So we might actually have a pretty good second half of the year with Disney reopening in a couple of weeks. Universal's already open, SeaWorld's opening tomorrow, and Legoland's already open, the big 4 here. We're probably going to have a substantial second half of the year and beginning of next year. And especially if there's a vaccine, things might get completely back to normal.
Yep.
The advantage of Orlando is, you've got year-long rentals. As opposed to the beach, which is usually seasonal depending on the weather, because there is a little bit of a winter here, but it's very seasonal. The snowbirds come, and then you've got rentals on the beach, and then the snowbirds leave, and you don't have that many renters on the beach. Whereas here, it's year-long. People come to Disney all year round. People come to Orlando for Universal, Disney, and everything else. Mm-hmm. And we don't have the weather problems that southern Florida has, so there's really not the hurricane risk that there is in southern Florida. During hurricane season, it's like every week there's another hurricane starting up. That threatens properties over there, that threatens tourism. Not the case here in Orlando, because we're about half to 2/3 up the state. So any hurricane that starts down there is kind of dissipated by the time it gets up to us. No flooding either. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the 2050 projections, but a lot of like Miami Beach, South Beach are going to be gone and non-existent. But depending on the forecast that you see, that's not an issue over here. So here I gave kind of an example of comparing a 5-plex, because a lot of people say, well, I like to buy multifamily. So for the price of a multifamily of a 5-plex, you can get a 6-bedroom house with a pool 5 minutes from Disney. So here's the comparison. And I took all of the US numbers, or the Canadian numbers, and I put them into US dollars. This is a real comparison of a property an hour from Montreal that costs $350,000 US, or 460,000 Canadian, versus buying a 6-bedroom house 5 minutes from Disney. So the revenues from the 5-plex, $28,000. The revenue from the vacation rental, $59,000. The insurance costs are much less on the vacation rental than they are on the 5-plex. Taxes are about the same. AC, water, and maintenance are about the same. The mortgage, being as the two properties cost the same, are exactly the same. Management fees are cheaper. Cleaning's a little bit more expensive. And you have to pay the bookings for, generally you get a booking company to book up the property, like on AirBNB and VRBO.
Yep.
But you end up with a positive cash flow of $9,546 on this side, whereas your 5-plex will actually lose money. So the other thing is, can you use it for vacations? Well, I would say I don't know of many people who want to live in a fiveplex to go on vacation in Saint Jerome, Quebec, but a lot of people would love to live in a beautiful 6-bedroom house with a pool for a week, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, yeah. That pool looks amazing.
It is. It's actually about this community here is only about 15 minutes from my house, and we have pools like this in my community as well. They're really gorgeous. They've got great views, and like I said, they actually come with a lot of amenities in the community as well. So you've got water slides in the community. You don't even need to go to Disney. You've got water slides. You've got a home. You've got a movie theater at the clubhouse. You've got tennis. You've got golf. You've got everything.
Yeah.
So the point is here, prices have been driven up on multiplexes so much that I prefer, I think that buying vacation properties, especially if you can get them on the cheap in the next 3 to 4 months, because there will be a drop in the prices because of the Brazilians and the Chinese and the foreign flights not being able to access here for a few months. Those investors are dropping out of the market and selling their properties. So there's going to be the possibility for Canadians to pick them up, and especially with the appreciating Canadian dollar. I don't know if you've probably been following it. It's gone up from 71 to 75.
Yeah.
If the price of gas keeps going up as more people go back to work, and it hits 80 cents, definitely a much better buy than it was 6 months ago.
Yep.
So AirBNB Realtor.com did a 2019 best place to own an Airbnb, and Orlando was number 2. The other reason is there's some great stuff coming that's going to add to the value of these properties in the next 3 years. So the first one is they've got high-speed trains coming in 2022, so in about a year and a half from now. Richard Branson and Virgin Trains purchased Brightline trains, and they're making high-speed rail service that already existed from West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, and Miami. But because they only had 3 stops, not many people used it. There was only about 800,000 passengers per year. Well, now they're going to add stops to Jupiter, Stewart, Vero Beach, Melbourne, Cocoa Beach, Orlando, Disney, and Tampa. And so that's going to massively overhaul that system. And they're expecting 2.2 million more tourists to come to Orlando, to come to Disney from Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm, just on the train.
Oh, it'd be so much easier, even if you're coming in to go on say you're going to go take one of those cruises, right? And you're coming into Fort Lauderdale, you could come in a couple days early and go to Orlando.
Exactly, absolutely. And that's kind of why Virgin Trains did it, because they own a cruise line as well. So they wanted the rest of, they wanted Tampa and Orlando to be able to access there, but it's going to have the reverse effect as well, is that people are going to come from the southern parts and come up, go on a cruise, go to Orlando. Want to go to the beach, but you also want to go to Orlando. Now you can have a chance to do both.
Yeah. So
more tourists equals more bookings, right? So that's why I think that it's going to be good for the short-term market. Epic Universe, Universal Orlando right now has 2 theme parks right next to each other. Disney has 4. Universal is building a 3rd one based on Super Nintendo, Fantastic Beasts, How to Train Your Dragon, and a lot of other Universal properties. So they're going to have 7 different worlds in Epic Universal. It's going to be right across the street from the current 2 Universal theme parks, which are Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure. So that is expected to bring about anywhere up to about 4 million more tourists. Each of the 2 parks right now gets about 9 to 10 million tourists per year. And about half of those are locals. So probably going to bring another 4 to 5 million tourists as well. That's going to be slated to be finished in 2023. There's going to be Donkey Kong, Mario Kart, Yoshi, Pokemon rides. It's going to be great. Disney's also kind of striking back. They're increasing the rides at each one of their parks to counter Universal. So they've got Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway that just opened before COVID. Star Wars Galaxy's Edge with a Millennium Falcon ride and a Rise of the Resistance. Get this, it's a 20-minute long ride through a Death Star. Yeah, you gotta go check that out. And Toy Story Land as well. Epcot has Guardians of the Galaxy, Ratatouille, and Moana coming this year. Tron Light Cycle is coming to Magic Kingdom, and Disney is getting a Cirque du Soleil show based on Disney at Disney Springs.
Cool.
So lots of cool stuff coming. So I'm just telling you all this because, you know, investors have a lot to look forward to in the next 2 or 3 years. So for me, it's just kind of like a 2008 situation. You pick up stuff low when people are, you know, sad because COVID, you know, basically knocked out their their revenues for 3 or 4 months, maybe even 5. And then you pick it up when they're ready to get out, or because they're no longer able to come to Orlando because they live in Brazil or China or whatever.
And people are scared of COVID, and it's made uncertainty. So there's just not as much competition.
Absolutely. So, you know, pick it up while competition is light. And then basically with all of these new things coming, tourism should ramp up in the next 3 years. And then, you know, you ride it out and you sell it on a high a couple of years later.
Cool.
And you get to use it. You know, you get to use it every year or every second year if you want to come vacation down here. I know a lot of people who like to come to Disney 3-4 times a year. So you get to save a lot of money on your vacations as well. And you get to, a lot of people right now, one of the main things out of COVID is people want privacy. They don't want to be in hotel rooms anymore, because you don't want to be in a hotel room with 1,500 other people. You know, you want to be in your own private space with your family, away from anybody else. So you get that opportunity with vacation rentals where you get to basically have your own house, your own kitchen, you make your own food. You don't have to be going to eat out the whole time, and you get your own pool. So you get everything you need to have this nice private vacation. And Airbnb and VRBO have come out with some amazing statistics showing how just in April and May, people were so sick of COVID, they wanted to have their own private vacation. They didn't want to be around people, but they also wanted to have a vacation. So they were rentals are actually up quite a bit in May already. Third airport terminal's coming. So we've got Terminal C that they're building. It's going to be done sometime at the end of this year. So that's going to expand capacity by 20%. And short-term rentals are only permitted. They're not permitted in this big red square here. They're only permitted in what's called Osceola and Polk County. So, you know, it's good to have a realtor like me to kind of help you understand where you can and where you can't have your short-term rental. So that's really important as well.
Yeah, you don't want to make that mistake. You don't want to make that mistake and not be able to rent.
No, you buy one and you're all excited, and then you come to it and they say you can't do short-term rentals here. That's going to be a huge problem for you.
Yeah.
The reason that I like Orlando is that basically it's 34% less expensive than Miami, 28% less expensive than Fort Lauderdale, and that's not even a fair comparison, because what you get for $350,000 here is that 6-bedroom house 5 minutes from Disney. $350,000 gets you a 2-bedroom condo in Fort Lauderdale. So, you know, you get a lot more space, and people are going to be looking for space now. People are going to be looking to be private, and they're not going to be. I think that the condo market and the apartments, you know, people are going to try to be getting out of apartments, trying to be getting out of condos. At least for the next 6 months or however long COVID lasts. And they're going to be trying to get into their own personal spaces. So houses, townhouses, you know, and in the vacation rental market, I think it's going to go really towards houses and away from hotels.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can use it for 365 days a year. So basically, the other thing I do is I show people how to increase their revenue. So there's some people that make $30,000, $40,000 a year in these, and there's other people that make up to $100,000. And the big difference is basically how you decorate it. So the people that decorate their homes like this, where they do theming with Minions or Star Wars or anything Disney, they're the ones where kids are going to go online, check out where they want to stay with their parents, and they're going to go, whoa, I want that one. I want the Star Wars one. I want the really cool one. And these people make like 5 to 6 times more on their properties than somebody who just has gray or beige or, bland decorations. So I show people how to get the most out of their investment as well. Yeah. Just to show you how much, these places can go for. You can make, about $300 a night on a 6-bedroom, 7-bedroom house. This house here, even a 5-bedroom, they made $115,000 in revenue last year. The other one up top, which was a 7-bedroom, this one here, they decorated the garage. This is actually a garage down here. Can you believe it? They actually changed it into a game room. They put an air hockey table, a foosball table, and computers. And the garage door, they completely covered it with this tile and this avatar decoration. So you can't even tell it's a garage anymore. And they made it into a game room. Well, they were getting $343 a night. And they basically made, that was in February that I pulled this $343 a night. They actually made $856 a night because they were making even more during the summer, and they made $250,000 of revenue last year. Wow. So there's a lot of money to be made in vacation rentals. I think it's a kind of our 2008 moment right now where you could pick them up for cheap and, ride them for the next 10 years. I think there's a beautiful opportunity there.
No, I totally agree. And for the people who are listening to this on like a podcast, this might be one of those episodes you want to come check out on YouTube, because I do put them out on both. Just do you want to see the maps of the Orlando, where you can invest and where not to invest, or you want to see the pictures of these rooms, what's been done, or even better is just to contact Marc directly, and he can have a help him, let him walk you through it. Why not?
Absolutely. And the last thing that I would say is that, I gave an example here of a house for $350,000, but there's townhouses for, as cheap as $135,000, so there's something for everybody. We have anywhere from $130,000 up to, $500,000, and the revenue will go with it, right? The bigger a place you get, the more people will pay for it, and the more revenue you'll make. But there's something for everybody. The other thing I wanted to mention is I work with a lot of Canadian banks, so TD and RBC, so that people can use their Canadian credit. And if they have more than 4 houses, which is, I think you've mentioned on a couple of other podcasts, where they kind of get stuck. I also have other sources that can help Canadians buy down here if they have more than 4 properties.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Is there anything else I need to ask you? Or do you want to wrap this up?
Well, I would just say that I think that it's people moving to Florida is going to be a trend. It's going to continue for many, many years. I think that especially with COVID, the fact that people can work anywhere now. The one thing that always kept Florida down is the salaries here are usually less. The taxes are less. There's no personal income tax here, but there's also the salaries are less. But I think that a lot of people that lived in Boston and New York because they had to, because their office was there, I think they're going to be finally making that jump to go, you know what? I don't need to work at an office anymore. I can work from home. I can telework. Why wouldn't you want to live in the sun, if you could make the same amount of money, right? So I think a lot of people are going to finally make the move now. So I think that property values are definitely going to increase in the next 10 years here.
That's great. Marc, if people wanted to get a hold of you, how do they track you down?
Well, you can either reach me at marc.younger@gmail.com, marc.younger@theglobalsite.com, which was my work email, or you can call me at 407-701-9959. And if you don't have a very good long distance plan, you can just call me and I'll call you right back.
Send him a text. Or is it a cell phone?
Send me a text and I'll call you back. Not a problem.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on the show again, Marc. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Glenn.